Hello everyone, welcome to Puzzle League, and the first of the Variety Sudoku Intermediate Series. My name's Eric, and today we'll be looking at the Classic Sudoku puzzle. First, we'll go over the rules to make sure we understand the puzzle. Then I'll explain the workbook solving guide, after which I will solve a complete problem from the beginning. Let's begin. Here are the rules. Each row and column must contain each number from 1 to 6, and each block outlined in bold must contain each number from 1 to 6. If the problem is a 9x9 grid instead of the 6x6 you see here, the same rules apply. Just make sure to include each number from 1 to 9 instead. And as you can see, if I mention a block number, I'll be referring to one of these 6 groups of cells. Okay, let's go through this example together. If you're following along, go to page 10 of your Variety Sudoku Intermediate Workbook. I'll go through each step. For this example, let's start by filling in all the number 2's. Remember, you don't have to start with 2 for every problem. You can start however you want. We see that there is a number 2 in the first row and a number 2 in block 3. This tells us that there cannot be a number 2 in any of the cells marked with a dotted line. There has to be a number 2 in each block, so for block 1, the 2 must be placed in the yellow cell. We wouldn't be able to put the number 2 in this cell because of the number 2 in the first column. Similarly, the 2 in block 5 must also go in the yellow cell, since we just put a number 2 in the third column. In this next step, we still have to place 2's in blocks 4 and 6. For block 4, the yellow cell is the only place where we can put the 2 because of the 2's in the 4th row and 5th column. For block 6, we can't place the 2 in any of the cells in row 5 or columns 4 and 5. Again, we only have one choice. Now that all the 2's are filled, we just need to repeat this process and progressively fill the cells. One way to do this is to look at each block and figure out which numbers are missing. You could just as well look at rows or columns too. You can see which method works best for you. Now I'll be solving Workbook Example 1 from the beginning. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you to pause the video and try it yourself, then come back if you get stuck or if you want to know how I solve these problems. Taking a quick look at the puzzle, I see that block 5 has 3 out of the 6 cells already filled in, so I'm going to start there. I see that it's missing the numbers 1, 3, and 6. Well, I know for a fact that due to the 1 in the second column here, I cannot place the 1 in either of these 2 cells, so the 1 must go here. And similarly, since the number 3 exists in the 5th row, the number 3 must be placed here. That leaves the number 6 in the last cell. That's how I filled in the 5th block of the puzzle. Now continuing on, let's take a look at this 5th row, since 4 out of the 6 cells are filled. We know that this row is missing the numbers 2 and 4. Well, since the number 4 already exists in the 4th column here, the number 4 must be placed here, which leaves us to put the 2 in the last spot there. Now in the 6th block, it's missing the numbers 1, 5, and 6. Let's see which numbers can go where. The number 1 can only go in this cell or this cell because of the number 1 in the 4th column. The number 6 can either go in this cell or this cell because of the number 6 in the last column. And the number 5 can go in any of these cells. I see that there's no cell that only has one possible number, which means that we can't solve this part of the puzzle right now. I'm going to leave it for now and come back to it later once we find out more about the rest of the puzzle. The second column has 4 out of the 6 cells already filled, so why don't we start here? It's missing the numbers 2 and 4. Well, due to the number 4 up here in the first row, the number 4 must be placed in this cell, which leaves the number 2 up here. In the first row, we're missing 3 numbers, 1, 3, and 5. I see that there's number 1 in this first column, so I can't put the number 1 up here in the first cell. However, I also cannot put the number 1 in this second cell because the number 1 in this first block. So the number 1 goes here. Now the number 3, I can put it either in this cell or this cell. But I have to put it in this cell here because in order to place the number 5, I have to fit it in this first cell to the number 5 in the third column. So there's the first row all filled in. Let's look at the first block. The numbers that are missing are 4 and 6. Well, we see that there's a 4 in the third column already, so the 4 must go here, and the 6 goes here. Let's keep filling in these columns. In the third block here, we're missing the numbers, 3 and 6. But we don't know which one should go where here yet. How about these 2 cells here? These 2 cells are missing the numbers 1 and 2. So I'll just mark it like this, just so it's a bit more clear. So these 2 cells are missing 1 and 2. We see right beside this first cell that actually the number 1 already exists in that row. So the number 1 must be placed here, and the number 2 here. So that's done. Now we still don't know where the 3 and 6 go, so we'll leave that. Let's take a look at this second block here. The second block is missing the numbers 2, 3, and 5. And we see that so is the second row, which makes sense. Let's try placing the number 2 first. We see the number 2 in the 4th column and the 5th row over here. So the number 2 must be placed in the last cell here. For the number 3, we see that there's a number 3 in the 5th column, so the 3 goes here. And finally, the number 5 in the last cell. Now, since there's a number 5 over here, we know going back to this cell that the number 5 cannot be placed here, so let's just cross that out. Since we just crossed out the 5, similarly, we can cross out the 1 as well because of the number 1 up here. So we know for sure that this cell must contain a 6. That means that this cell must contain the 5, and the 1 goes there. Alright, now let's fill the rest of the puzzle in. This 4th column is missing the number 6, so we just put it in the last cell. This 5th column is missing the number 4, so we put it in the last cell. And this last column is missing the numbers 3 and 5. Now we see the number 5 in this 3rd row, so the 5 must be placed here, and by deduction the 3 goes here. Now we know for sure that going back to these last 2 cells, the number 3 must be placed in this cell because of the number 3 in the 3rd row, and then the number 6 goes in the last cell here. So it looks like we've finished the puzzle. Let's take a quick look and see if we met all the rules. Looking at each row, we see that each row has every number from 1 to 6, and none of them repeat. That's good. Now looking at the columns, it's the same thing. Each number from 1 to 6 appears in each column without any repeats. And lastly, each block has each number from 1 to 6. Yep, alright. So we know that we've solved the puzzle correctly. The answers are also in the back of the book, so if you want to check your answers, only do so after you've finished the puzzle. And that's it. That's how I solved this puzzle. And I hope you can go on to solve the other puzzles yourself now.